5 demonic traps that instantly drain your vibration. Beware. There's a war happening right now, and it's not on the battlefield, it's not on the news, and it's not in the hands of politicians or kings. It's happening in the unseen, in the quiet, invisible spaces between your thoughts, in the places you dismiss, the patterns you think are normal, and the emotions you've buried so deep you forgot they were even yours. This war isn't fought with weapons. It's fought with energy, yours. And unless you learn to see the traps that drain your vibration, you'll never understand why you feel tired for no reason, why your joy disappears overnight, or why your sense of direction in life fades even when everything should be fine. These are not random glitches in your system. These are traps, ancient, clever, energetically engineered to keep you disempowered. They don't just steal your time, they steal your light. I've walked through these traps. I've seen people with massive potential get swallowed whole by them. And if you're watching this, it's not by accident. Something in you already knows you're being drained. You felt it, that invisible weight pulling on your chest, that fog that creeps in after scrolling endlessly or arguing with someone who doesn't care to understand you. That numbness that grows after you betray your own boundaries again. These aren't just bad habits. They are spiritual extraction points. And the beings that feed off them. They're not wearing horns and pitchforks. They're much more subtle. They don't need to possess your body, they just need to influence your choices, your attention, your state. And if you don't catch them, they will catch you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first trap is one of the most common and most underestimated: emotional reactivity. This is how they hook into your field through your reactions. Every time you explode in anger, spiral into anxiety, or sink into despair without awareness, you open a hole in your energetic body. And through that hole you bleed. You bleed vibration. You leak life force. Now don't get me wrong, anger and grief are not evil. But when we react instead of respond, when we get pulled into the storm instead of observing it, we become food. How many times have you left a conversation feeling like you just gave away a piece of yourself? That's not just emotional exhaustion. That's energetic harvesting. The trap works by keeping you unconscious. It doesn't care what emotion it triggers, only that you sink into it without presence. The moment you witness your emotion fully, you begin to reclaim your power. Awareness is the sword that severs the cord. The second trap is digital hypnosis. Sounds harmless, right? Just scrolling, just watching, just consuming. But what you don't realize is that every unconscious second spent on a screen is a second of your focus, your most sacred currency, being siphoned. Think about it. Your focus is what builds reality. It's the lens through which all your energy flows. So what happens when that lens is hijacked? You begin to live inside someone else's program. You stop creating and start reacting. You stop dreaming and start comparing. And slowly your vibration, your original frequency, dims. These traps are designed to look like pleasure, but they are prisons. You don't have to throw away your phone. Just wake up while you're using it. Ask yourself, is this feeding me or feeding on me? The third trap is false connection. This one is insidious. It shows up as relationships that look warm on the outside but drain you on the inside. The friend who always complains but never changes. The lover who draws you in with flattery but never truly sees you. the group that preaches love and light but gaslights your shadow. These are not just toxic dynamics. They are contracts, energetic agreements you didn't consciously sign, but you uphold every time you stay silent, say yes, yes when you mean no, or ignore the red flags because you're scared to be alone. And every time you do, you give away a piece of your sovereignty. The trap here is the illusion of safety. You think you're staying connected, but what you're really doing is bleeding slowly. If a connection costs you your peace, your clarity, or your truth, it's not love. It's a siphon. And here's a question that will haunt you in the best way: who benefits from you staying small, drained, and distracted? That question alone will shatter the matrix you've been living in. The fourth trap is self-betrayal, and this one's personal. But because no demonic force can damage you as deeply as you can damage yourself when you abandon your own soul. Every time you ignore your intuition, every time you say yes out of guilt, every time you silence your truth to avoid conflict. These are not small things. These are soul fractures. And the entities that feed off your vibration, they wait for these moments. They whisper lies like you're being selfish, you're too sensitive, it's not a big deal. But your body knows, your spirit knows. Every act of self-betrayal creates a ripple in your field, one that weakens your center and makes you easier to manipulate. The only antidote is radical self-honesty. Speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. Honor your needs, even when it's inconvenient. Because every time you choose yourself authentically, your vibration sharpens like a blade. And the fifth trap, we'll explore it in the next part. Because it's the most invisible, the most seductive, and the most devastating. It's the reason so many powerful souls stay stuck in cycles of suffering, even after years of spiritual work. It's the trap that wears the mask of light, yet drains you in the name of growth. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. You'll begin to reclaim the parts of you that have been held hostage by illusions you didn't even know you were serving. But before we go there, ask yourself this: where am I leaking my energy right now and pretending that it's normal? The hunger of shadows, why darkness feeds on your energy when you're not aware. Every day, we move through layers of energy, some of it ours, some of it not. Most of the time, we don't even realize how much we're absorbing, how much we're giving away, and how many unseen forces are watching, waiting, feeding. This may sound dramatic, but once you've truly seen what's behind the curtain of this world, you understand that darkness isn't always loud and obvious. Sometimes it smiles at you. Sometimes it looks like an opportunity. But sometimes it wears your face, and its only goal is to drain your vibration without you noticing. Because the most efficient predator is the one that convinces the prey that nothing's wrong. Let's go deeper into this. Darkness doesn't need to possess you in the way movies show. It doesn't need to twist your head or make you levitate. That's theater. Real energetic possession is subtle. It's when your thoughts are no longer yours. When you're suddenly swept into a self-destructive spiral that you logically know doesn't make sense, but emotionally can't resist. When you feel heavy, unmotivated, apathetic, and you can't trace it to anything specific. That's when you know something has latched on. Something is feeding, but you call it burnout. You call it a bad day. You call it life. And that's the trap. You see, these shadow forces, call them demonic, parasitic, or whatever term fits your paradigm, they don't care what you believe. They care about one thing: energy, density, vibration. And the moment you stop being sovereign over your emotional and mental body, they move in, not because you're weak, but because you're unaware. And that's the great danger of modern living. We've normalized being unaware. We've normalized distraction, disconnection, emotional numbness. We've normalized reaction over reflection. And in that normalization, we've created a playground for shadow forces to feast unnoticed. You've probably had moments where you felt like you were being watched, even when you were alone. Moments where your thoughts turned dark for no reason. Moments where you tried to meditate, and instead of peace, you were flooded with intrusive images. That isn't just your monkey mind. That's interference. That's energetic static. And if you're vibrating high, if you're a light carrier, a truth speaker, a frequency shifter, then you're even more of a target. Because your light disrupts the feeding patterns, your awareness breaks the loop, your presence purifies the space, and they can't have that. So what do? They infiltrate you from the inside out, not by attacking, but by convincing. They convince you to doubt your intuition, to settle for less, to stay in spaces that drain you, to betray your boundaries. They whisper, you shouldn't speak up. You're too much. You're not ready. And slowly your vibration dims, not in an explosion, but in a slow fade. That's how they win, through decay, and through delay, through distraction. And here's where it gets even deeper. These shadow forces feed not just on your pain, but on your potential. They love when you get stuck in procrastination, when you make excuses for not stepping into your calling, when you keep your voice small because you don't want to make others uncomfortable. Every time you delay your purpose, they feast. Because your unexpressed power is one of the most potent energy sources in the unseen realms. Light that is not used becomes food. That's why so many gifted souls, the healers, the artists, the visionaries, struggle with depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue. Because they're plugged in and don't even know it. So what do? We wake up. We cleanse not just our bodies, but our thoughts. We start asking, is this mine? Every time a heavy emotion arises, we start unplugging from the people, places, and patterns that siphon us. We create sacred space daily, not just physically, but energetically. We seal our fields. We call our power back. And most importantly, we stop reacting and start observing. You are not powerless. You are not a victim. You are a sovereign energetic being capable of choosing what you allow into your field. But you must claim that sovereignty. And that means taking radical responsibility for your state, not blaming, not judging, but choosing presence over distraction, choosing truth over comfort, choosing clarity over chaos. Now, here's the uncomfortable question. What parts of your life are feeding off you while pretending to serve you? The job that pays well but leaves your soul empty. That friendship that drains you but you keep around out of guilt. That routine you've outgrown but keep repeating because it's familiar. These are all feeding points, and until you cut the cords, you will keep wondering why your vibration won't rise beyond a certain level. It's not because you're broken, it's because you're leaking. And remember, darkness only feeds where there's permission, usually unconscious, but permission nonetheless. Revoke it. Reclaim your field. Reinstate your throne. In the next part, we're going to unravel the most deceptive trap of all, the one that hides behind positivity, behind spiritual language, behind light itself. It's the trap of bypassing. The trap that tells you everything is love and light while your soul is screaming in silence. And when you see how deep this rabbit hole goes, you'll understand why so many light workers fail to anchor real power. We're not here to escape the dark. We're here to master it. The light that lies, how spiritual bypassing becomes a demonic trap in disguise. There's a trap more dangerous than darkness, more deceptive than fear, more effective at draining your vibration than any external enemy. It's the trap that wears white robes, speaks in soft tones, and uses words like love, peace, and oneness, but behind its mask is denial, avoidance, and spiritual paralysis. I'm talking about spiritual bypassing. And if you've been on any kind of awakening journey, this trap has already tried to seduce you. Maybe it already has. See, one of the most cunning tactics of low-frequency forces isn't to attack you with negativity, it's to disarm you with false positivity. It's to convince you that everything is fine, even when your soul is screaming. It's to teach you that being spiritual means being calm, being agreeable, being polite. It's to shame your anger, suppress your grief, and tell you that if you feel pain, then you're not high vibrational enough. And so, you start to gaslight yourself. You stop listening to your body. You stop trusting your emotions. You smile when you want to scream. You say it's all good when it's not. And slowly you drift further and further away from your authentic power. This is where the trap sinks its teeth in. Because when you bypass your shadow in the name of staying in the light, you become fragmented. You become energetically split. Part of you is trying to ascend, while the other part, the wounded, denied part, is being left behind. And do you know what happens to the parts of you that are left behind? They become vulnerable. They become distorted. They become easy entry points for energetic interference. You think you're raising your vibration, but what you're really doing is stretching your aura so thin with pretense that anything can slip through. I've seen it countless times. People who meditate every day, speak in affirmations, cleanse their space with sage, and yet they're exhausted, anxious, confused. Why? Because they built a spiritual identity, not a spiritual foundation. They've become so obsessed with appearing enlightened that they've stopped actually doing the work. The shadow work. The uncomfortable, messy, raw, sacred work of integration. And that's exactly what these demonic forces want. A person who believes they're awake, but is still unconscious to their own wounds. That's the perfect host. That's the perfect battery. Let me speak plainly. Real spiritual growth is not cute. It's not aesthetic. It's not about floating above the world. It's about diving into it fully. It's about confronting the parts of yourself that you'd rather keep hidden. It's about owning your anger, your jealousy, your fear, not to indulge them, but to heal them. Because when you bring awareness to your shadow, you reclaim your power. You stop leaking energy. You stop being vulnerable to manipulation. You stop needing to pretend you're okay when you're not. You become real. And realness is untouchable. So ask yourself, where in my life am I using spiritual language to avoid spiritual truth? Where am I saying everything happens for a reason instead of allowing myself to grieve? Where am I saying I forgive when I haven't even acknowledged the depth of my hurt? Where am I pretending to be Zen when I'm actually numb? This isn't about judgment, it's about liberation. Because every time you bypass your truth in the name of being spiritual, you lock a piece of your soul in a cage. And the more pieces you lock away, the more fragmented you become. Fragmentation is weakness. Wholeness is power. The light that lies is not your ally, it is your anesthetic. And while you're numbed out, pretending to be healed, the real work never happens. That's how the trap sustains itself, but that's how it drains you. But once you see it, truly see it, you can't unsee it. You start to notice how often spiritual communities reward surface-level positivity and punish depth. You start to notice how often you've silenced yourself in the name of keeping your vibration high. You start to feel the rage of your inner child who was told to smile and be good while their pain was ignored. That rage is sacred. That grief is holy. That darkness is not your enemy, it's your initiation. When you stop bypassing and you start integrating, your vibration doesn't just rise, it stabilizes. It stops swinging wildly between highs and lows. It becomes strong, anchored, undeniable. You stop being easily triggered. You stop being easily drained. You become energetically solid. Not perfect, not always peaceful, but real. And in that realness you become impossible to manipulate. Because here's the truth, darkness can only feed on what you refuse to face. But once you face it, once you bring it into the light of your awareness, it loses its grip. You don't need to fight it, you just need to see it. And when you do, you become free. In the next part, we're going to peel back the final, most dangerous layer of all. The illusion that you're growing when you're actually just cycling. The belief that you're making progress when in reality you're stuck in a spiritual loop designed to keep you chasing, striving, and never arriving. This is the most advanced trap, and until you break it, you'll keep mistaking movement for transformation. It's time to wake up from the illusion of progress. The illusion of progress, how false growth keeps you spiritually paralyzed. There is a trap so deceptive, so perfectly engineered, that you can spend years inside it thinking you're evolving when in truth, you're simply orbiting the same wound in more sophisticated ways. But it's the illusion of progress. It's when you confuse activity with evolution, knowledge with integration, and movement with transformation. This is the final trap, and it's the one that catches the most awakened souls. But because this trap doesn't come to you as darkness. It arrives as books, workshops, healing sessions, affirmations, rituals. It arrives as the never-ending hunger to heal more, learn more, clear more. And on the surface, that seems noble. But underneath, there's a loop that keeps you seeking instead of embodying. Let me ask you something. How many times have you repeated the same lessons in different packaging? You leave one relationship, do the inner work, and attract another with a similar dynamic. You uncover a childhood wound, cry it out, journal it, and feel better only to have it rise again in a new form a month later. You feel like you're evolving, and yet your life doesn't change in the way you hoped. The people, the patterns, the emotional cycles they echo. That's the trap. It's progress on the surface, stagnation at the core. You see, false growth is seductive because it gives you the feeling of movement. You watch a powerful video, feel inspired, get emotional, maybe even have a few realizations, and for a while, your vibration rises. But nothing truly shifts. Why? Because you didn't integrate. You didn't change the behavior. You didn't make the scary decision. You didn't act on the insight. And so the energy collapses. You go back to baseline. And then you seek the next fix, the next video, the next healer, the next ceremony. That cycle is not growth, it's spiritual consumerism. And while you're busy consuming, your soul is whispering, when will you finally act on what you already know? This trap is especially dangerous because it flatters the ego, but it lets you feel superior. I've read all the books. I've done 10 ayahuasca ceremonies. I'm working with 3 coaches, and yet your boundaries are still unclear. Your voice is still shaky. Your relationships are still misaligned. Why? Because you're mistaking accumulation for transformation. But real transformation isn't about how much you know. It's about how much you live. It's about how many difficult truths you've acted on. How many times you've chosen alignment over approval. How often you've let go of what's comfortable to serve what's true. Now, here's where it gets wild. This illusion of progress isn't just a personal trap, it's an engineered system. It's reinforced by platforms, algorithms, even some spiritual leaders who create dependency instead of empowerment. If you always need their next insight to feel whole, then they've become your source, and that opens the door to energetic siphoning. Real teachers lead you back to yourself. They don't give you more to consume. They give you mirrors, questions, and challenges that force you to embody your truth. And that's what scares these shadow forces most, an embodied soul. A being who not only knows, but lives their light. Because once you embody, you exit the loop. And once you exit the loop, you're no longer food. So ask yourself, what have I been pretending not to know? What action am I avoiding, even though I've already received the guidance? What truth am I delaying because it threatens the structure I built? These are the questions that end the false progress. These are the questions that dissolve the trap. Because here's the truth, you don't need more information. You need activation. You need to live what you already know. You need to let the lessons shape your choices, not just your thoughts. You need to stop upgrading your spiritual vocabulary while your life stays the same. You need to stop chasing breakthroughs and start becoming one. The final trap is clever because it tells you you're almost there. Just one more course, one more healing, one more tool. But what if you're not almost there? What if you're already there and the only thing left is to step into it? What if the prison isn't lack of growth, but refusal to own the growth you've already earned? When you break this trap, everything shifts. But you stop seeking and you start embodying. You stop consuming and you start creating. You stop waiting for permission and you start leading. And in that moment, your vibration doesn't just rise, it stabilizes at a level where demonic traps can't touch you. Because you're not leaking anymore. You're not chasing. You're here, rooted, clear, dangerous to the systems that depend on your confusion. You came here to awaken, to remember, to rise, not endlessly, not forever, but fully. And now you know the traps. Now the choice is yours. Wake up or repeat forever. Whoa.